questions continue to swirl following the officer-involved shooting death of an alleged Antifa member suspected of murdering a Trump supporter. So according to the New York Times, 21 out of 22 eyewitnesses reported that they did not hear officers identify themselves or give commands to the suspect, Michael Reinoehl, before shooting him more than 30 times. Joining me to discuss this latest developments on the case is D.C. correspondent for The Nation, Ken Klippenstein. Great to have you, Ken. Good to see you.
Hey, great to be with you.
Just break down this latest. Talk to people about the story overall, what happened here, and what this New York Times reporting reveals.
Yeah, so as you point out, there are a bunch of witnesses, a whole bunch of them. Incredible the number they were able to get, over a dozen, that said that they didn't hear the marshals. And I should point out, it's not just the marshals, but it was a joint task force involving FBI agents, state law enforcement, and local law enforcement, along with the marshals, that didn't identify themselves when they came in to arrest him. And in addition to that, one of the some of the police claimed that they found that he raised a gun. Many of the witnesses there said they didn't see that, and all of this is happening with the backdrop of President Trump saying that there needed to be, quote, retribution, and that they came in and they didn't intend to arrest him. And in addition to that, you've got the head of the Justice Department, William Barr, also praising them for this, for killing this individual who had been suspected of murder and was clearly going to be investigated for that. But we've got all these eyewitnesses saying that they didn't make a serious attempt to try to arrest him.
Yeah, and we actually have a little bit of the president who has, at rally after rally, talks about this case and celebrates the murder here of Michael Reinoehl. Let's take a listen to that.
The easy one are the anarchists in the middle of the street that hate our country, hate our cops. You saw them, they killed this young man, right? They shot him in the street. And a day went by, they knew the guy, and they didn't arrest him. Another day went by, I called down, I said, what's going on? They didn't arrest him. They knew who he was, they knew where he was. They would have never. So I sent in our great U.S. Marshals. They were so happy. The law enforcement, they love our country. They were so happy. And this guy was a killer. He had other crimes too, by the way, bad ones. But he shot this young man right in the middle of the street. Shot him. You heard the bullet ring out. You heard the people scream. They knew who it was. They said that was so-and-so. So after 2.5 days, I said, go in. Gotta get him. 15 minutes, it was all over.
15 minutes, it was all over. What did you make of that, Ken?
Well, the folks I know in law enforcement are extremely angry about it because, whether or not that's what happened, the message it's sending to the public is that, the marshals and, again, local law enforcement and the FBI that served with them in this operation are just, these kind of lawless roving gangs that are going to go out and do the president's bidding. As you point out, I've been reporting on what's going on and what has happened in Portland the last few months. And a lot of my attention has been turned to Department of Homeland Security. But I'm really glad that this case is drawing attention to the Justice Department, because a lot of my sources in both agencies are saying that the folks that have really gotten off the hook here and not gotten the same kind of scrutiny that Homeland Security has been the Justice Department. And you've got William Barr, who, for going back decades to his time in the H.W. Bush administration, was able to craft a sort of arcane legal basis to deploy federal assets to the U.S. Virgin Islands in light of a natural disaster that happened there. So he spent, years and years practicing, figuring out how to put at the president's disposal law enforcement and federal assets to send in response to things at his leisure. So really what we're seeing here is the culmination of, years of legal work by Barr, and then also in an election year, President Trump wanting to, deliver rhetoric that is going to make his base feel as though he's really going after Antifa. And one of the problems here is that kind of rhetoric can have the effect of being a sort of wink and nod to not everyone in law enforcement. I'm not saying that by any means, but some folks are going to hear that as permission to, kind of go all out. And from my understanding, from the folks that I know in law enforcement, there is a culture of sort of recklessness on the part of the U.S. Marshals, a sort of shoot first, ask questions later. I'm quoting from a senior intelligence officer described to me the Marshals culture as being sort of the gloves are off. They can be very aggressive. They exist to not just protect federal property and assets, but also fugitive task force to bring in people for whom arrest warrants had been issued.
Yeah, well, and I just want to break down for people what exactly happened in this exact instance to the extent that we know based on new eyewitness accounts from the New York Times. So originally, the story we got from law enforcement was that Michael Reinoehl, who again was suspected of killing a Trump supporter in Portland, who, though he had not yet been charged, but he was suspected and seemed to sort of admit to it in a Vice interview, that he had drawn a gun and fired at law enforcement. Immediately, that story starts to shift. The type of gun, some members of the task force said one thing, others said another thing. And now with this eyewitness accounting, what we're hearing is not only did 21 out of 22 eyewitnesses not hear law enforcement identify themselves or try to direct the suspect, hands up or get on the ground, any of that stuff, but also, according to the New York Times reporting, he did have weapons on him, but the gun that was on him was found in his pocket, having not been removed. So what does that indicate about exactly what went down here, Ken?
I think it's extremely troubling what it indicates. If you've got all these people saying that they didn't announce themselves and that they didn't identify themselves, and I'm not saying that he shouldn't have been investigated and brought in. Obviously, he should be investigated for murder. The video that we have indicates that he seems to indicate that he shot someone and killed them, a Patriot Prayer member at one of these protests. But for them not to, announce themselves, this is a very elite group of individuals that are used to and trained in dealing with, high-risk individuals who can be assumed to be armed and dangerous. So I think it's unlikely that they wouldn't have been able to at least try to bring him in safely, and it doesn't look like they did.
Yeah. Ken, thank you so much for breaking this all down. We appreciate it.
Great to be with you.
We'll have more Rising for you after this.